gentlemen,
It's time for Politics with a Punch.
ringside.
Hey, next we're going to be talking about business and how to spur more business growth here in Louisiana. One great way is to get all that startup funding for these new business ventures, and some good news on that front. And let's bring on now Mark Graffagnini. He's an attorney with Graffagnini Associates. His firm put together the Louisiana Venture and Angel Capital Report. Mark, welcome.
Good, thanks you. Thank you for having me.
You know, in the past, I worked with some businesses that were trying to get funding together here in Louisiana, and it was very difficult to do it here locally. We looked at California, all this big venture capital flowing into that state. Not much here in Louisiana, but things are changing, and tell our viewers about that.
Yeah, that's right. So what our firm did was it studied the number of deals that are being reported to Louisiana Economic Development Department. We also took a look at the filings that Louisiana companies are making to the Securities Exchange Commission. What we found is that not only are there more companies raising money out there, but there seems to be an increase in investment in Louisiana companies, not only by Louisiana investors, but also by professional venture capitalists like you mentioned on either coast as well.
Now, there is a tax credit that's been particularly helpful. Tell us about that if you could.
That's right. Louisiana has something called the Angel Investor Tax Credit Program. It's a program administered by the Louisiana Economic Development Department. And what the program does is it gives investors a 35% tax credit on income up to a certain limit if they invest it into a Louisiana entrepreneurial business.
So that gives Louisiana maybe an edge. Now, according to your report, the LED says 13 companies received the credit in 2011, but that jumped up to 21 last year. And do you think that might continue to increase this year?
Yeah, I do think so. You know, 2011 was only a partial year. So the legislature passed the tax credit bill in July 2011. So there were only about 4 months for companies to claim that in 2011. But I think there was a lot of pent-up demand then. As you see, the number jumped up to 21 the following year. This year, what we're seeing so far, and what wasn't covered in this last report, but will be soon, is that there are a number of companies already taking advantage of it for 2013.
Why do we see that growth besides this tax credit? What do you think else is going on that's helping Louisiana?
You know, I think Louisiana has had an influx of talented, bright young individuals. I think more and more investors inside of Louisiana are waking up to the possibility that, you know, there are serious businesses being built here that have the potential to grow into large national, if not global companies.
So maybe the reputation of Louisiana is not a good place for business is wrong with all this going on. Tell our viewers, if you could, some of the types of businesses that are taking advantage of this credit and getting started here in the state.
In terms of the angel investor credit, the types of companies seem to be vastly internet related. So online platforms are one big segment within the sort of internet technology company rubric. Education technology companies are also pretty big, and then certain types of medical technologies are also emerging.
Are most of them starting up in the New Orleans area, or is it spread out pretty much evenly across the state?
In 2011, the data showed that there were roughly an equal number of businesses in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. In 2012, the number was tilted much more in favor of New Orleans businesses. Our data doesn't really give an explanation of why that's the case, just that it occurred that year.
Now, one thing you think is important is that the legislature continue this tax credit, which actually sunsets in 2015, right?
Right. No, I think it is. I think it's been a useful program in attracting investment, particularly as, you know, Louisiana investors become used to the risk-reward profile of something like a technology company, which they might not have invested in previously.
You know, there seems to be a post-Katrina influx of younger folks here in Louisiana, and these are the type of people that maybe would be interested in getting involved in some of these startup companies. Yeah,
I think that's the case. I mean, at least as far as the companies that we're seeing raising money in out there, I think the profile of the founders tends to be on the younger side. Many of them have moved here from other places for one reason or another. But I'm also seeing more and more native Louisianians starting businesses and starting to, you know, I guess understand what it takes to raise venture and angel capital.
So there's a real buzz about Louisiana as a place for doing business, and is that really, you think, expanding across the nation?
I think it is expanding across the nation. You know, typically, and hopefully our report helps fill this gap, there's been you know, not a lot of analysis paid to deal flow for angel and venture capitalists. And what we're trying to show is that New Orleans has a credible startup entrepreneurial scene that's attracting national attention. So, the bottom line, I think the key takeaway is that you should get in while you can, because before long, after some of these companies grow, it might be very difficult.
Real quick, we have about a minute left. Give us the difference between venture and angel capital.
Okay, yeah, and those lines are very blurry, as I'm sure you're aware. But angel capital tends to mean that you're an investor at a very, very early stage, as in a concept stage of a company, whereas venture capital typically describes someone who's in the business of making investments in these kinds of companies and then seeing a big return later.
How can our viewers get a copy of this report? Is it available to the public?
It is. You can go to our website, graffagninilaw.com, and you can also send us an email at hello@graffagninilaw.com, and be sure to send you a copy of it.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the hard work for our business community here in Louisiana. When we come back, we're going to talk about something we need to turn around that'll help our business community, and that is the crime situation. We'll be dealing with that next right here on Ringside.